it's hard not to smile while playing the Plucky Squire. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but bear with me. I knew next to nothing about this game until the trailer popped up during some online presentation. I couldn't even tell you which one. I remember being blown away by the aesthetic. The idea of a game playing in both 2D and 3D has always seemed like such a cool idea to me. Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds both utilize this mechanic to a great degree, having you occasionally jump into the wall in order to tackle some kind of platforming challenge or puzzle, and I loved it. But the Plucky Squire is something a bit different, dare I say, a bit more. The game was published by Devolver Digital, a good sign of things to come if there ever was one. But more importantly, it was developed by a small studio known as All Possible Futures, a name that I am positive almost none of you have ever heard of. But you may know the guys that run the show over there. Jonathan Biddle, for example, directed the indie hit Fluidity, a game about navigating water through an environment. The other guy, James Turner, previously served as a designer and art director for Pokemon. Not a bad pedigree, right? But I think these credentials actually undersell the Plucky Squire quite a bit. Because the fact of the matter is that this is easily one of the best video games I've ever played in my life. I expected a 2D Zelda-like with some light platforming, but what I got was so much more. On the surface, in the most basic sense, the Plucky Squire is a mashup of Super Mario and Zelda. It's undeniable. But the game also incorporates so many game types beyond those two behemoths. You'll find elements of Rhythm Heaven, Punch-Out, Puzzle Bobble, and so much more here. And it's all wrapped up in a pristine package of gaming goodness. Yes, the hyperbole meter is about to break, but trust me, this is not hyperbole. The game does have some flaws, which I'll get into, but I feel it's very, very necessary to hype up this game. So let's back up and dive into some of this a bit. You play as Jot, the Plucky Squire, the main character and hero in a child's storybook. Your nemesis, Humgrump, is a very jealous sorcerer who doesn't understand why he can't be the main character for a change. He wants everyone to love him rather than loathe him. But in typical storybook fashion, Jot wins the battle time and time again, and proceeds to write about his victories so that everyone across the land of Mojo can know of his good deeds. Kind of a dick move if you think about it, but then again, he has earned it. Throughout the journey, you'll be accompanied by a number of your friends, Violet, Thrash, and Pip, just to name a few. And each are playable from time to time. Another central character is the ever-cool wizard, Moonbeard. While you don't get to play as this character, he often chimes in with story bits and helpful tips. Speaking of the story, the game starts off as a very Zelda-like affair. You have a top-down view of the action, swing your sword at bad guys, yada yada yada. You know how a Zelda game works. One of the first quests has you dealing with a honey badger, and Jot, being the good guy that he is, agrees to intervene. The quest is largely a tutorial level until the very end when you encounter the badger and Jot rips off his sleeves and engages mano a mano with the badger. You're seeing this right, a boxing match with a honey badger. I couldn't think of a better way to start the game myself. Following our victory, Jot and crew notice something amidst in the distance and set out to see what's going on. It's at this point that we find out that the big bad discovered some kind of crazy magic that allows him to expel the hero from the storybook where they live, allowing said big bad to take the spotlight. This then leads our hero to discovering a whole lot about his existence and what it means in the grand scheme of things. This is our first taste of the other world, which is essentially the real world that exists just beyond the pages of the storybook. Here, you'll run around a boy's desk, navigating obstacles, dealing with bad guys, and solving puzzles. Turns out that the boy who so avidly reads our book is quite the storyteller himself. The writing is overall quite excellent. Each character, aside from our silent protagonist, is loaded with personality and a playful quirkiness. It comes off with a strong Saturday morning cartoon vibe, and while it may not appeal to older audiences, I can definitely appreciate it. From here on out, I'm not going to break this game down sequence by sequence. I think it's hugely important that new players discover this game for themselves, so I'm going to jump around a bit and only point out some of the more noteworthy things about the game. Earlier I mentioned some of the genre blending that happens here, but it's not exactly a one-to-one recreation of those genres. For example, the battle with the honey badger does closely resemble Nintendo's Punch-Out, but in a much simpler form. There's no blocking, for example. Another boss battle has you playing as your buddy Thrash, hitting objects out of the air with your drumsticks. This plays similar to something like WarioWare or Rhythm Heaven. Later in the game, you'll face off against an evil wizard, this time as Violet, since she is your resident magic user. This boss battle is, amusingly enough, most similar to a round of Puzzle Bobble. There are other genres being blended here, but I don't want to spoil anything. Trust me when I say, you'll want to discover these things for yourself. The combat is interesting in a few ways too. Firstly, while it does borrow heavily from 2D Zelda, its combat is very slightly more involved. Jot is equipped with a sword, and with it, a standard 3-hit combo. Complementing this is a handy dodge move that you'd expect to find in something like Dark Souls or the 3D Ninja Gaiden games. Interestingly, this dodge move can be used outside of combat as well, and gives the 3D segments a pretty solid Super Mario feel overall. Very good stuff. Aside from the action bits, the game also has a unique spin on puzzle solving. In taking a page straight from this Scribblenauts playbook, you'll find a variety of puzzles involving story text strewn across the environment. You'll see a few sentences with words that can be dislodged and rearranged, and you'll use this manipulation to find solutions to the aforementioned puzzles. Another puzzle mechanic that often mingles with the wordplay is the ability to jump out of the book and return to previous pages, sometimes taking a word or an object with you from one page to another. These two mechanics combine to form one heck of a solid base for puzzles in the game. They feel very Zelda-like in the sense that you feel like you figured out something in a creative and clever way, even if there was only one way to do it in the first place. The game also boasts a bouncy and upbeat soundtrack that fits each moment perfectly. Like the genre blending, the music often blends with a particular scene to mimic other games in very subtle ways. Take for example this stealth-heavy bit towards the end of the game. You may notice the music here has a bit in common with a certain stealth series. The voice acting is kept to an extreme minimum in the Plucky Squire. In fact, the only voice you'll hear is that of Philip Bretherton, a man with shockingly few credits to his name. In fact, according to Wikipedia, he's primarily known for his role in a British TV series called As Time Goes By, and has only starred in about 4 films. In the Plucky Squire, this is his only video game credit. Now, don't assume that this man isn't up to the task, because he positively knocks it out of the park here. I'll just leave it at that. The game sports a simple but nonetheless beautiful hand-drawn look in its 2D segments, while transitioning that same style into 3D wonderfully. The real world has a very real look to it. It reminded me a lot of Pikmin 3 in its ridiculously realistic fruit, so no complaints here. And speaking of complaints, I should probably cover some of them, as few as they may be. First up is the game's difficulty, though I'm not sure this is actually much of an issue at all since the developer has since updated the game to offer more challenge to players who want it. Let me explain a bit. You see, I prefer to play in easy mode these days, so I don't exactly expect a tough challenge in the first place. But I've learned that there is a fine line between too easy and too tough when it comes to a lower difficulty, and the Plucky Squire does lean a bit on the easy side of things. But again, I did choose easy mode, so this isn't exactly a big issue. The other complaint I would have is related to the rhythm boss battles. It feels a bit like a lag issue. If you've ever played a game like Space Channel 5, maybe you know what I'm talking about. It always felt like my button presses were delayed ever so slightly in that game, whereas something like Guitar Hero didn't seem to have this problem at all. That's how these boss battles feel to me. The Plucky Squire is a game that quickly caught my eye with its visuals and genre-blending design. Something a lot of indie titles tend to do. But it's more rare to come across a game with this kind of appeal that actually delivers in the way that the Plucky Squire does. The story and the characters are all cute and charming, and even laugh out loud funny at times. The gameplay offers so much variety that I simply never became bored, and the genre blending is a big reason for this. I really hope each and every one of you gives the Plucky Squire a go. It's such a well-made and wildly unique experience that it'd be a crime against humanity for it to go unnoticed. This game gets a glowing recommendation from me. Wow, as I wrap this up, I realize this almost sounds like a sponsored ad for the game. I swear it's not. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was definitely a lot of fun playing through this one. Stay tuned for the next video. I have a lot of things in the pipeline I think you'll really enjoy. Thanks for watching.